We'd topped out at 10,000 feet. At that stage, I was just looking out my starboard window, and I saw what looked like the flare from Marsden Point oil refinery. It was a bright orange, solid flare. It looked like a long-distance flare. We were on the radial. We were actually on the Tauranga, Auckland radial, flying back towards Auckland. The flare was not where it was supposed to be. So I said to the skipper, and he looked and said, no, that's not Marsden Point. And he agreed it was at least 30 degrees further onto our nose, like it was tracking with us. It wasn't receding behind us, as you would believe something would. So we thought, maybe it's an aircraft. We'd better find out if we've got some traffic. So we called up Auckland Radar, and we've got another identified light off to our starboard side. Have you got anything on radar? They said, stand by, and they looked and said, yes, we've got an echo, an air return, 3 miles on your starboard side. We tried a few things out, like we turned all the lights off, and we even dimmed the cockpit lights to see if it was an internal reflection. And it didn't make any difference, it was still there, so we turned all the lights up, and Auckland said, it's paralleling your course. So 3 miles is not that far, actually, so we decided we'll see if we can turn away from it a little. And the damn thing followed us, still paralleling us, so it must have accelerated because it was on the outside of the turn. So we decided we better turn all our lights on to make sure it could see us. So we turned every light on, including the landing lights, and I suggested to the skipper, seeing its full mating on us, see if it turns away from us. Just a nice gentle turn, just a 10-degree bank. So he banked 10 degrees, and I said, can you tell us if we're getting closer to it, to radar? And we turned back towards it very, very slowly with all our lights blazing, and the light paralleled us again and turned away from us. At that stage, we told the passengers, and every man and his dog ran over to the starboard side of the aircraft and had their noses pressed against the windows. We had about 20 passengers on the flight. And then we decided it was coming up towards top of ascent, and we're going to start on down, so we asked Auckland if we could descend. They said, affirmative, descend initially 5,000 feet. About a minute into the descent, the whatever it was, moved extremely quickly. I mean, within a second and a half, from being 3 miles off or 3 nautical miles off our starboard wing, around onto our nose. And that kind of surprised us a little bit. And it did it in a second and a half. So it covered a lot of space. It covered 6 miles in a second and a half, or more than 6 miles, actually. So we said to Auckland Radar again, have you still got the target? And he said, affirmative, it's now about 3 miles ahead of you. So this kind of surprised us more than a bit. I didn't have my radar turned on, my weather radar turned on, but I decided I'd do that because even though it's weather radar, if you're careful with the pitch of the beam, you can actually pick up solid objects. And then tilted the radar beam up and down until I picked up a solid return at about 2.8 miles. And at this stage, we're approaching 5,000 feet. We asked for a further descent. Just as we started to do that, the object, which was still ahead of us, still looking exactly the same, a very, very bright light. I'm guessing if you know what Sirius looks like, I'm also an amateur astronomer. I was with the Auckland Observatory for a while. But if you know what Sirius looks like, it was about 3 or 4 Siriuses in brightness. It went from 3 miles ahead of us to directly over top of us. We didn't get a view of the shape or anything, just this really bright light whipped straight over the top of us. And as it went over, I pushed my stopwatch, and I said to Auckland Radar, it's just flying over the top of us. Can you tell us when you lose it? And when he said, yep, we've just lost it, it's climbing above radar at 60,000 feet, and it's at Taupo, Lake Taupo, which would have been, we were still about 20 miles, let's say about 180 nautical miles south. It did that in 28 seconds, and they lost it climbing through 60,000 feet. No sonic boom, no shock wave, no nothing. And the average speed to Lake Taupo over that 180 miles was about, in kilometres an hour for Europeans, about 45,000 kilometres per hour. And then we kind of looked at each other and said, are we going to put the incident report in? I said, well, I'd like to. And the skipper said, yep, we'll put it in. And we said to Radar, we're going to file an incident report. And the Radar guy said, yep, I am too. What can you say? So it was unidentified. It was certainly flying. Of course, it had manoeuvred with us. And it was an object because at one stage we had two radars at the same time recording it as well as having it in visual sight. So I guess it was a UFO.